Q&A. I'll start off by just kind of like framing the conversation a little bit. So a little backstory on myself. I am Michael Tanzillo. I've been working in 3D for 25 years now. I'll give my little backstory. I started in Ohio. I started off wanting to do photography at Ohio State when I was younger. I was actually doing traditional photography, so black and white film in the darkroom developing, doing color film and color developing. When Photoshop and digital cameras first started coming out, I rejected them entirely. I would never ever use them because why would I ever, when we got these beautiful chemical processes? Got out of school. It turns out I'm not a very good professional photographer. I didn't like it. They didn't like me doing it. So I just bartended for a while until I watched a DVD version of Finding Nemo. And I'd kind of kicked around with 3D a little bit. I worked in an art gallery too, and I saw people submitting gallery submissions using 3D as a way of like showing their way around, putting their work in the art gallery space. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm a mediocre artist. This would be great for me to help get my exposure out there a little bit. So I started doing 3D, really liked the process, watched Finding Nemo. There was this behind the scenes of artists going scuba diving off the coast of Australia to get the look of the film. And that just like blew my mind. And then they were the lighting artists. They were defining the look of the film visually. And it was something that I never thought about. It was a job I didn't know existed. So I got really, I kind of was like, no, this kind of felt like my calling, and started applying for jobs straight off based on some terrible 3D work. I was not completely, widely, justifiably ignored. And then I started building a portfolio. I applied to grad schools. I got in a couple, but ended up going to SCAD. The Savannah College of Art and Design. Went down to Savannah, not knowing much of anything. Took some prerequisite courses, and then got into doing lighting more professionally with the help of some incredible people down there. Was lucky enough at the end of that to get a render wrangling. It was a lighting technical assistant job at Blue Sky Studios on Ice Age 3. And I worked at Blue Sky for 13 years. So I was a technical assistant. I was a junior lighting artist, mid-level, senior lighting artist. And by the end, I was the head of training for all the artists because we were switching pipelines. And then in 2021, Blue Sky shut down. It was closed by Disney. And after that, I switched over to working for the Substance 3D team at Adobe. I got a 6-month contract as just a demo artist gig. And I got over there and I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to talk to some video game companies, some movie companies. And at the end of the 6 months, I should have some good contacts. I should be able to roll this into my next job. And I got into it and I was like, oh, I'm actually not talking to any entertainment companies at all. And I got exposed to the 3D capabilities of all these other companies doing 3D, product visualization, fashion designers, footwear designers, industrial design, education, simulation, all this kind of really cool stuff. Got to work with museums, got to work with NASA, got to work with just a bunch of companies whose names I won't say out loud out of respect for what they do. And I got kind of overwhelmed by this, like, every car company needs 3D artists. Everybody everywhere wants 3D artists. And I was like, why didn't I know about this at all? And also they're having difficulty finding people because the way that I describe it is that each kind of industry is like we're a bunch of ancient civilizations that all are on different islands and in different continents and different places. And the way that 3D developed for architectural visualization, they did it differently than entertainment, then did it for industrial design and all these different things. But we all developed kind of the same stuff. It's like ancient civilizations developing religion and written language and numbers and all these things. And they're all just kind of forming. And now we're starting to cross the seas a little bit and talk to each other and gain better communication, better understanding. So there's more needs for like a fur TD in fashion to be able to do high pile fabrics like fleeces and stuff. And so they're starting to communicate with each other. There was a huge gap in what I knew and what I understood about that process. I just thought that everybody used Maya that did 3D for the most part, but I was widely mistaken. There's a ton of other software out there from these other companies that better fit their needs. There's also tons of different workflows too. Like I've always been like, I just want to make the prettiest picture I possibly can, and that's my goal. But for a lot of like the fashion companies and industrial designers, it's like, it's not about what's on the screen. It's about being able to deliver information to a manufacturing center to produce an actual thing. So it's a lot of different use cases. And so I've been kind of blown away by that. And with the difficult state that the entertainment industry is in, And I'm not saying that every other industry is booming right now because it's global. Everything is a little bit wonky right now. But there are other opportunities, and so I wanted to just kind of like tell people about them, answer any questions about it. I've been making this kind of my life mission now for the last few years. I have outside of my work on animated films early on, I did side stuff. I started this place called I co-founded a place called the Academy of Animated Art with Jasmine Katatakarn. It was to help students learn how to light for animated films. What people were learning in school wasn't quite getting them there, so we wanted to share that. So that still exists. Jasmine still runs it. So if you want that, I also wrote a book, The Lighting for Animation. And more recently, as I've kind of like taken this foundation of community outreach as far as I could, I started some new stuff to kind of with this initiative for communicating what is out there in the 3D world for everybody else. So I have a newsletter called the 3D Artist Newsletter. I've gotten worse at naming things over time, to be clear. And I also have a community called the 3D Artist Community, which is it's on a platform called School. It's a community that it's kind of experimental the way I'm doing it. It's more like a co-op. Everyone pays $20 a month. I pay more, but everyone else pays $20 a month. It goes into a community pool, and we use that pool to like bring in, have workshops or like pay for some software that we can use collectively. I also, like this month, we're kicking off. We have a VFX coach coming in and doing some career coaching and career training and group mentorship and that kind of thing. So it's a collective space. But again, my whole thing is like trying to make people aware that there's more out there, because I know that when I got laid off, it sucked. It's a pretty terrible feeling, especially when you're working in a studio that uses a proprietary renderer and that's all you really know, and then that thing's about to die, and like all this knowledge you have just in your head doesn't matter anymore. And I felt pretty lost, and I felt pretty much like my skills didn't transfer, and I felt myself begging, like not like begging, but like in a state of like, God, I just really hope one of these film studios or VFX houses has a job for me. And I didn't realize that my skills were unique, that knowing 3D is extremely valuable in other industries. And so I just kind of want to make sure that everyone is aware of that and knows about that. So it's because there's a big wave of things coming, and I don't know actually where. I'm realizing now I don't know where the actual chats are coming in, if there are questions coming in, Nikita, or anything like that. So I'm here to answer questions. I can keep rambling on for the full hour. I've got no problem doing that. But yeah, I want to make sure to save some time to answer some questions.
I think there's a little icon at top right. Should have a little comment like box. Do you see that?
Oh, look at that. There she is.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Cool. Teacher recommended your book. Oh, great. Yes. So I'm not here to promote my book. You can buy it or not. It's fine. But yeah, you can. But yeah. So one of the biggest things, and I always I tell this story, is like kind of my aha moment when I came. I'll answer this question. I'll go back to my storytelling. Is it possible to rapid fire list adjacent industries that you've seen outside of entertainment? Yeah, for sure. I have. Let's see. I actually have a list that I can pull up here, so to make sure that I don't forget any. Because if I try and do it off the top of my head, I guarantee you I will miss something and I will make someone mad. So visual effects, animation, gaming are like the three big entertainment fields, right? Like those are the biggest ones. Kind of adjacent to that is motion design. So motion design is any sort of flying graphics, any sort of. It kind of bridges the gap between 2D and 3D. Think of people working in After Effects. Think of people working with Illustrator files. They're bridging into 3D a little bit more. There's a fantastic motion design studio out there called Laundry that does a lot of brilliant 3D motion graphics type of stuff. And it's more than just, like, I was thinking about it as like floating orbs and colorful balls, like blah, blah, blah. But they are... but it's like the intro to Game of Thrones, the intro to Severance, like that kind of stuff. It's kind of like 3D, 2D kind of mashup blending. I would think of it as like 3D with 2D aesthetic styles. They use a lot of Keyshot. They use a lot of After Effects. I'm sorry, not Keyshot. I apologize. They use Cinema 4D and After Effects and that kind of thing. On the complete opposite end of the world, from like the entertainment motion graphics, they'll use Blender, Cinema 4D, that kind of thing. you've got the CAD industries. So think industrial design, product visualization. Again, this is software and workflows designed to produce manufactured goods. So they always look a little bit janky. They never quite, like, the pixels aren't the most beautiful thing in the world, but they will communicate. They're a way of better visualizing the way a 3D the way that product will look and function in 3D space outside of, flat drawings of things. Because that's the thing. This is the value of 3D in this world, is that you would have like, whether it's fashion, footwear, product design, they are used to flat drawing of something, created prototype in their hand. That's the two steps. There's a huge gap between those two things, because to get the prototype, it costs material, which is wasteful, which is expensive. Like, just try shipping anything overseas. I have a mother-in-law who lives in Vancouver. Tried to ship her some clothes. It was like $70 in shipping just for a little bag, and then she had to deal with customs when it got up there. Imagine now with like prototypes of big things. Companies spend millions and millions and millions of dollars just to ship prototypes back and forth. If they can reduce even a couple of those, because you know that they're going to have me to prototype at some point, but it's all design cycles. And if you can eliminate the first few cycles, you can save them millions of dollars by doing that. So that's the value of that. And that kind of falls into industrial design, package design. So fashion is another big one. So same deal with them. Usually used to just drawing and doing pattern making in 2D, and then coming up with a manufacturing center making a prototype. But now they have software like Clo, like Browseware, which allows you to do fashion visualizations in 3D. They have some really, really cool simulators and dynamics, and like you can give your cloth like dynamic value. So cotton falls different than silk, falls different than flannel or whatever, or wool. And if you're anyone's like a cloth sim person, Marvelous Designer may sound familiar to you. And then there's Clo. They are 99% the same software. Like, they're made by the same company. But the difference is the output. Like, the workflow to get the garment is the same. And then for Marvelous Designer, it's all about like creating sims that can be used on characters. Clo produces what's called a tech pack. And a tech pack is essentially like a PDF with all the information to actually make the garment that's on the screen. So it's like the amount of fabric, what type of stitching, blah, 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 blah. And that's like the most telling sign to me of the difference, right? It's like making a real thing versus making a digital thing. Okay, so that's them, motion graphics. There is footwear, which is similar to fashion, kind of the same. Footwear is awesome. Footwear is super fun because it's form, its function, its looks, right? Like, you have to design it for someone to actually fit on their foot. And it's like a sportswear, or like it has to function at a high level too. So for them, that's a lot of, there is some CAD stuff they'll use Rhino a lot. They'll also use like Gravity Sketch and more like VR type modeling stuff, because they're really all about building the form and then playing with the different material types. So this is good for someone who's into modeling. It's also good for material artists. In all these industries, there's a term for material artists called a CMF designer. CMF stands for color, material, and finish. And it's like a real version of a material artist on a 3D production. You understand the way the fabrics work together, the way that they function. You understand the way that certain things flow. It's a lot of taking samples and patterns and applying them to things. So footwear will do that. Again, same idea. It's expensive to produce a prototype of a shoe. Like, they have to go through multiple prototypes. If you can reduce some of them by doing it in 3D and either looking at it on a screen and spinning it around in Substance Painter, or 3D printing it out, whatever. Automotive, it's actually funny. Cars, I never say this to these industries, but car design and shoe design are so similar. Like, they're similar, like very form focused, very much on the CMF design. Again, like the color, the material, the finish, the what feels like a luxury car versus a luxury. Like, they're a very similar workflow. Lots of combination of CAD plus some other stuff. Automotive, a big software is Autodesk makes this thing called VRED, which is a major automotive design software that exists out there. So you hear them talk about VRED a lot. And then architectural visualization. So this is another one. So this is, again, blueprints, final product. They don't really have the luxury of doing prototypes. I guess they do scale models. You can do that. But those, again, expensive, difficult to ship, like very, very difficult to work with. So why not do it in 3D? They'll often use, there's an amazing artist who used to work at Epic named Samantha Anderson, who started a company called Studio Ladder. She does architectural visualization inside of Unreal. Brilliant person and a great person to connect with there. But they'll use things like Twinmotion. Some of them will use SketchUp. But it's all about translating real world things into 3D space. Outside of that, there's some, other satellite industries, obviously like medical visualization is a big one. There's education, lots and lots of potential in the space of using VR for training purposes or AR for training purposes. I've seen it where they've helped Army medics deal with emergencies on the battlefield, like simulating that in a VR space versus, or like working on an oil rig and how do you fix this thing with a brace to prevent a massive oil spill, or you're a nurse and you need to learn how this new device works, that kind of thing. Like I said, every time I put together a piece of crappy furniture, I would love a VR headset to tell me, like to look at the pieces and tell me where they go. So that's my rapid fire action. Let me go through some other ones. I'm a technical artist. I heard that NASA used Houdini at some point, which I thought was so interesting. What kind of jobs can technical artists, Houdini artists find? Let's see, find outside of entertainment. Yeah. Like I talked to somebody who's using Houdini for product shots. They work for a company that produces like kitchen appliances, and they're using Houdini to kind of just to do the basic product visualization stuff. But the great thing about Houdini is that you can present it in a way that it's repeatable patterns. Like the way that you do one scene easily transfers over to another one, whether it's the lighting rig, whether it's the modeling setup, whether it's the simulation, the bubbles in the carbonated beverage, whatever. That is a big one. And procedural. It's funny. It's actually really interesting to me that node-based workflows and procedural workflows are getting stronger and stronger all the time. And even in like the AI world and like things being automated, because you still need a way to control the automation, and a node-based workflow actually makes sense because you can pack together functions and different steps and tell things to do things. And Houdini is great for that. But yeah, Houdini is very powerful in that way. From NASA, the work that I did with them was on helping, because NASA's a government agency. Government agencies need to put together proposals for funding. And so they wanted to land a probe of some sort on an asteroid. And so it was like helping visualize what that would look like. And so a lot of it was like, how do you make the asteroid look like an asteroid that no one's ever seen before based on information and getting that. So really it's a lot of, there's procedural ways to build out that kind of stuff, and procedural ways to build out the worlds that they're trying to explore and that kind of thing. So NASA is a giant agency, but just know that there are industries out there. The other one the other Houdini thing that I think is going to be very valuable, it's in fashion, because they, obviously they work a lot with samples. Samples are great. You can scan them, you can put them, you can tile them up and they look great. The only problem is that scanning certain material types doesn't work that well. Anything that's metallic, any sort of metallic threads, any sort of sequins, any sort of, like I said, high tile stuff, it doesn't really work that well. Or in like super fine materials, like with certain details, when they want to get really close up to it, they get to scan it at such a resolution that it just doesn't work. So a lot of them are starting to explore the idea of doing procedural knits and, like I said, the high tile fabrics too. So like if you can do that, that would be pretty cool. Right. I'm currently a student in Houdini Generalist Program. Where do you see the? Yep, that's the Houdini answer there. Hello, as a game environment artist, will it be an easy transition to archviz or similar software to use? Yeah. Any tips on where I can find resources on that? For the gaming environment artist archviz, yes, it is. I would say Samantha Anderson, I'm throwing her LinkedIn on the table. She's a fantastic person. She does exactly that. She would probably be better at specific information. But the key is couple keys in general about this stuff. If you know Unreal or Unity or Maya or Blender, your knowledge level is already at the top of the heap of like what is needed for these industries. Like there's rendering software for product visualization called T-Shot, Substance. We make our own one called Stager. If you know how to render in Maya, you can pick up that stuff in like a day. It's super simplified version of 3D software because Maya, Blender, Houdini are designed to do pretty much anything, like anything you could possibly want. A lot of these other software are more geared towards specific use cases. So like architectural visualization, there's something called Twinmotion that they use. It's like a slightly simpler version of Unreal. It's a pretty easy learning curve for you as the creative. It's just a matter of getting that stuff under your belt so you can add it to your resume so you can make yourself more attractive as an applicant to these companies. The other thing too is being able to communicate their language to them. Like I've talked about like a CMF designer or a pack shot or a tech pack for fashion. Like get in there because you have the 3D knowledge. Everyone in this group probably has some 3D knowledge to do the job. They need to know the workflow, like how 3D actually helps that industry. What are the internal jargon terms like footwear? I love footwear, man. I struggle sometimes with the uppers and the like all the terminologies for the different shoe components. I do a lot of smiling and nodding along as if like, okay, I'm jotting it down and searching it out later. So yeah, I mean, none of these transitions are, I would say easy, but like they're definitely doable in the climate given the knowledge that you already have. And again, like a lot of these companies aren't as, a lot of these industries aren't as bad off as gaming and entertainment is right now, but nobody's really like, inflation is still high everywhere. Like everywhere stuff has driven the way with that. Juan Lopez is here. Hey, Juan. So let me go back to some questions. So Samantha Anderson is her studio is called Studio Ladder. Anything that I rambled pretty quickly. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me and my email address, or you can just message me on LinkedIn there. And if you have any questions or need any sort of follow up to any of the things that I ramble on about today. Okay, so next question from my buddy Juan Lopez. Juan is a brilliant artist. You guys should check out his stuff. I'm a huge fan of Juan. Okay, companies and positions in the San Francisco Bay Area hiring lighting artists outside of games and film. Man, I'm in the Bay Area and a former lighting artist, so man, yeah, this is hitting home. I've noticed that some companies use a different name for the position. Yes. Okay. Two things about this. I'll answer the question directly after I clarify one thing. So for years, I've been saying if you want to get a job in 3D on animated films and film and animation and stuff and games, like find a specialty. Be an animator, be a lighting artist, be a material artist, be an effects artist, whatever. Find your niche because all those big studios have pipelines and people fit in the slots in the pipeline. These companies that I'm talking about, architectural visualization, the automotive, all of them, they don't work the same way. They need people to be more generalists because the way that I tell people about it is think about creating a film, like you're on a film set. You've got the cinematographer, the camera operator, the gaffer, the best boy, the lighting, like all of these jobs. But if you're a company that wants to make video content, they're looking for a videographer. Maybe a couple people in videography to do it, like maybe an editor and a videographer, but like for the most part, they need people to make videos. They think of 3D is the same way. So they're not going to be like, hey, we are this company. I'm going to hire a lighting artist, a material artist, a modeler, a concept. Like they want to hire 3D people, and they will balance skill sets out so that the job titles will change around a little bit. But they will. But it will take. And Juan, I know your work. You do more than just lighting, so you're in a good spot there. But like the companies around here are all tech companies, so it's a lot of. Like I know people that work for Google because Google makes Nest devices, and those devices need to be on the websites, and like they need 3D versions of those. So Apple has a whole 3D division. I mean, they've got an Apple Vision Pro and they're big fans of the USDZ file format for getting 3D assets in there. So they have a 3D team. NVIDIA, like I said, I work at Adobe. The big tech companies all have it. Also, there's a lot of electric car companies out here, Rivian and others have job openings out here as well. And then it's a lot of, like I said, a lot of these tech companies. There's also a wave of companies that want to produce avatars for different experiences, whether they're like AI customer service bots and that kind of thing. Like Meta has been hiring a bunch of people. And so I would say look tech companies, look auto manufacturers, and try and find and then looking in that space too, outside of the normal like gaming VFX industries out here. As a 3D sculptor, what places can I work that's mainly just sculpting? I mean, that's again kind of goes back into and I know you wrote these questions before I said those things, but like there's some companies that will, I would say for sculpting, it's mostly like product visualization, because companies like a big company that makes a product, they have generally like one of two options for making 3D content for their visuals. They can hire an agency where they call someone, they're like, hey, we need you to do this. That agency will make 3D models, make visuals for them, and send them the visuals. But they won't ever send them the 3D files, right? That's like, because if the company has the 3D assets, then they're more easily able to make stuff. So I would say, and it's a big thing, like, again, for, talking to companies about substance, like we can help them produce materials. We can help them produce whatever they want for their visuals, renders, whatever. But there's always the question of like, how do we get the base model? And so I would say, if it was me and I wanted to like freelance something or start my own business or get hired at one of these companies, I would be focused on like one industry, like be it footwear, automotive, fashion, like become maybe not fashion, because those are generally fashion designers, but maybe become really good at building models in a certain thing and building a portfolio of that. So because what you want is these companies to look at you and think, oh man, this person is the perfect person for this set of requirements that we have for this job. That's basically it. So I would say build out a portfolio of what you want to do. And again, it could be appliances. It could be like go on any e-commerce site and see what they're selling a lot of. Whatever's there's going to be a need for 3D models of that stuff. But also know that if you're just putting up gray models, that might not impress them as much, because they'll want somebody who actually like builds the product. So I would also do like maybe some material work in there as well. All right. Let's see. Do you think Houdini can be used for scientific visualization? Oh yeah, computational physics, something like that. Yeah, for sure. Yes, to be clear, I didn't actually land the probe on anything. I did everything from my little home office here, so it wasn't that exciting, but it was still like childhood dream come true to talk to NASA. That was super fun. Yes, Houdini is great for simulations. Like lots of companies want simulation data for car crashes, for how their product reacts in certain situations, windblown stuff. Like the only thing is that in effects, in film and entertainment, none of this stuff has to be real. This stuff is real. Like you need to, as long as you can do it in a way that simulates realistic situations, like how wind blowing will affect something, then it's more valuable that way. But yeah, it's definitely but know too that like a lot of these industries haven't explored Houdini yet, because it's such a dense, complex thing, and they're just kind of dipping their toes in 3D now. And so for them, you need to not, if you're presenting yourself, I would say don't present yourself as a Houdini artist, because it's one of those things that like they don't really, you have it on your resume, but like they don't really care. I would present it more as like you're a simulation artist that can help them solve these problems, because that's what companies want. Like this is, and I just talked about this recently in my newsletter. Like one of the things that's different between positioning yourself for an animation or gaming studio versus like one of these industries is that you don't need to convince an animation or gaming studio that doing 3D is valuable. Their whole product is 3D, right? Like everything they make is like requiring 3D workflows. That conversation doesn't happen at all. What you need to do to some of these other companies is communicate value through what you're doing. Like, does it help them speed up their manufacturing process? Does it help them achieve more photorealistic results so they can bypass shooting photographs of every one of their products, and they can actually do 3D renders. But like, how do those renders get faster? Can you automate that process in Houdini? Can you show them like, dude, I've got this virtual studio that you put any product in, and I can we can render out all the images you need from the website. All the different angles of something, maybe some in situational stuff. Like you can work pretty quickly with that. So yeah, that's a big one too. I'm looking to work abroad and expand my reach to other areas, not just games, but also in visual effects, film, etc. Based anything that needs a 3D artist. It's important to have a degree of working overseas. I've learned 3D sort of short course. Yeah, I mean it's a visa thing, so it depends on how it's done. If you want to work full time for a company overseas, you generally, and every company is different. Generally speaking, you need to have a degree in your field in order to be eligible for visa requirements. I know that's true in like the US and Canada and Australia and UK, I believe. I'm not a visa expert, so don't hold me to this, but having a college degree in your field will allow you, is an easier path to getting visa stuff. Outside of that, you have to prove that you're like a super high level industry expert in a certain thing, which is harder to prove. Now, if they want to hire freelance, that's a little bit of a different story because they're not actually hiring you. They're just contracting out to you. Something else I should point this out too, with especially entertainment industry stuff, even though that you are remote, and I found this out a few years ago. So these companies are benefiting from tax incentives of certain places, Vancouver, London, wherever. In order for those tax incentives to kick in, the whole point of the tax incentives is to bring workers to that area, right? So if we're talking Vancouver, they get the tax incentives if like 90% of their employees live in British Columbia. But if you live in another country somewhere else, you don't. They will want you to move there at times because it helps their tax incentive. So but like I said, if you're freelancing, if you're just a contract, it won't matter as much. So yeah, I'm a firm believer that, like, generally speaking, nobody really cares in the industry. Nobody really cares like what degree you have. But for visa things, it matters. It's what I liked going to grad school because it helped me produce the best work that I needed to do to get the job. Like that was the structure I needed to become a better artist. But that's not true for me. So. Oh yeah, you're working on. I assume most of our dream jobs would be in entertainment, but we all know how competitive it has become. If we pursue a job in entertainment, Jason, could that be used as relative experience for the entertainment industry? Yes and no. I mean, it depends on the specific work that you're doing. Generally speaking, you'll have to keep developing your portfolio on the side of that because the skills and the visuals that you're producing may not flow over as well. Like I said, if you're working for a shoe company and you're producing 3D models of shoes, like that's cool. But also they also have the same problem of like they won't let you release those models the same way that a film company won't let you produce, like put shots from the film on your demo reel for a while. So I would say that it's a little bit of a fork in the road in the career path, but but your two options are you can continue building a portfolio on the side on your own time and keep applying, or you can have faith that, at my analogy earlier about the different civilizations coming together, there's going to be more crossover between that. Like I know more people from entertainment that are going into these spaces, but I don't know as many people going from product visualization or something like that into entertainment. Mostly because of what you're talking about. Mostly because of the like low opportunities and lots of people on the job market looking for this stuff. That won't be forever. That's not like a permanent state, I don't believe. Like I know I've been kicking this around in my head a lot lately. Like we have a problem as human beings that we're like, I can't wait for it to go back to the way it was. Like after something catastrophic, if something difficult happens, you're always like, hey, when are we going to go back? After September 11th, it was like, I wonder when airports are going to go back to the way they used to be. And then you slowly start to realize that it's a new world that we're living in, and you don't just go back to the way things were. I'm curious as to like how this is in entertainment. Like, I don't know if we're ever going to go fully back to the way we were 10 years ago. I just think it's going to look different going forward. But that being said, these are pendulum swings that go back and forth. So we've seen lulls in the industry before, but sorry, that was kind of a long rambling answer to say that I don't know what's going to happen next. So we'll figure that out. All right. Yeah, but at the same time, like I got into this with the dream of working on animated films, and I get that working on a kitchen appliance is less of a dream come true. That being said, I will say I'll say the thing. It pays better. It's more stable. If that's, I mean, it's not perfect. Every job out there is susceptible for layoffs and that kind of thing. I just know, again, from the time of working in entertainment to coming over to software or something else. And I talked to lots of other people that have made that move. Nobody is itching to get back in entertainment. I always say too that like, because Adobe's a really good company to work for. They're very kind and let me do stuff like this, and they're very, very supportive of and it takes, and every artist that we bring in from entertainment, there's a transition period that occurs that they're like, they have to kind of get used to that. They're like, wait, am I about to get fired? Like what? And like, no, it's okay. Like maybe you didn't do that one task perfectly, but we're here to coach you through it. So it's a better setup. All right, get some more questions. Do you see 3D modeling, let alone 3D jobs, becoming more common? Is it not more needed in the future? I'm a 2D concept artist who's been working towards 2D art field games. However, recently being those jobs more regulated towards senior lead roles. Asking for 3D jobs on 3D job, blah, blah, blah. Especially junior 3D, maybe character internships. I was curious, given everything seems to be shifting in good times to start picking up new skills, shift gears while speaking. It's a lot. Okay. This might be more of a personal question, but wanted to ask since I got a few 3D understanding under my belt and been seeing stuff moving about it in the industry. I was curious to your thoughts. Okay. So I think that 2D workflows are going to remain about the same level of need in those. And I can't I think that 2D will probably remain pretty static. I know people are worried about AI doing 2D things. I think AI is going to do the 2D things that people already aren't hiring you to do. If you're a concept artist or whatever, if you're going for a major film company or whatever, they might use like some AI stuff early in development, but ultimately they need their designs to be unique and special so they can copyright them. So I think that those what's needed out of everyone there will be about the same. 3D, on the other hand, I think is over the next 5 to 10 years is going to grow exponentially. Like and again, it's in these industries that I'm talking about because there's a thing that's coming, and we don't know what it's going to look like yet. Right? Like we see rumblings of it, like metaverse was a big thing that was discussed a couple years ago, but like it was laughable, right? Like it wasn't ready yet. But we do know that sometime in our future, there's going to be augmented reality glasses. There's going to be more 3D experiences. This was told to me recently by somebody at SIGGRAPH, and it was like a little bugaboo that sits in my head. Is that we have to get used to the idea that the internet's going to have a Z access soon. That the idea that we're going to have more interactive 3D experiences online, in our devices, in everything that we do. There are things, and it's not like the big things that a lot of people point to. Again, like a VR workflow to help me put furniture together. Like little things that'll, like I can look in my fridge and it can tell me what recipe I can make for dinner. I'm a sports fan. Sports viewing is exponentially better in a VR space. You feel more at the event and more of a part of it. Concerts are the same way. All of that stuff is going to need 3D assets. We don't know what it's going to look like yet. It's going to need 3D things to populate that space. Whether they're, like virtual social media spaces, whether they're products that you want to see in your home, go to Amazon and try and buy a shelf or a dresser or something. Most of them have the AR capability to place it in your space to see if it fits in your bedroom or kitchen or whatever. Those are 3D models that need to be made and put in the space and optimized and refined and low poly and textured and all that stuff. There's going to be more of that. If fashion can figure out virtual try-on, it's going to explode. And again, all this stuff is not because it's cool. It is, but it's because it's valuable to the company. Virtual try-on, placing products in spaces around the scene, reduce what am I trying to say? They reduce returns. And by reducing returns, the companies save huge amounts of money. Like Amazon has normalized free shipping and free returns. We talked earlier about how expensive shipping is. Those companies are paying for that. So if they can reduce returns by like 20%, they save millions and millions of dollars. So that's kind of where I see the future of 3D. It's much more about everything in your space that is real. It's going to need a virtual twin, digital double. They have different terms now. I like virtual twin because you're going to need that for an exponential number of instances. And the last thing I'll say is that most of the work that we do today, whether it's games, films, whatever, is 3D for the sake of 2D. The output is a 2D thing. It's a thing you see on a screen or, you play in a console or whatever. We're going to reach a world where 3D is the output, where the 3D asset is the output, whether it's for a VR game, whether it's for, like I said, figuring out if this cup looks good on my desk or whatever. Like, you're going to need the 3D asset. So 3D is going to be essential in this stuff. Long-winded answer. Sorry about that. All right. I teach games, art, and animation, and it's great to hear about the wider opportunities available to students. Just wondering if you have any ideas on the kinds of numbers for these roles. It sounds like there are other jobs are there, but they're quite niche roles. So yeah, I mean, in terms of numbers, in terms of like how many of them there are, we're at like kind of a crossroads right now for these companies really getting into hiring these processes and really implementing this stuff. So it's like, one other like really powerful thing is think about like a global brand and they have a product and it's a packaged good and that product exists in every country in the world. If they update their logo, if they create a new flavor, if they create a seasonal variety of whatever their thing is, the amount that they'll have to update around the world is like exponential because every country has their own packaging requirements, their own languages, their own this, their own that. I remember first film that I worked on, they were like, okay, so-and-so is going to work on the title shot for Ice Age 3. And I was like, cool. And I was like, what shot is it? And they sent me a list of like 15 shots or 16 shots or something. And I was like, wait, I thought you said it was one shot. They're like, no, it's a title shot. We're doing it 16 times for 16 different languages. You're like, oh, right. Languages. That's the thing. So I would say that I don't have hard numbers on opportunities, but I will say that there is a need for this that's coming, and preparing yourself for that is a good place to be. And just because it always felt like I was putting all my eggs in the entertainment basket, and it was good for a long time. But we're now seeing the cracks a little bit starting to form and some uncertainty. So diversifying your skill set is very valuable. Okay, Nikki has a question. If someone wanted to transition from the entertainment industry into one that you have mentioned, do you have a general step-by-step to-do list? How would you approach it? It's honestly just about making the step-by-step I would do is identify the area that you want to go into. Like research it, read up on it. Like what is the workflow now? And then the next step is taking what you know about their workflow and what you know about 3D. How can 3D help that? Or how are people already using it? And then get in there and start making it and building out a portfolio and connecting with people. If you have questions, you can reach out to me. Like I said, I don't know everything about every industry, but I certainly know people you can talk to, people you can follow. Also, like utilize your LinkedIn, your social media, whatever, as maybe even just make an account for it that allows you to obsess over this new thing. So like you can join. One of the things, there's a really funny Reddit forum for LinkedIn lunatics, right? People say the most ridiculous. It's all like hustle culture crap on LinkedIn, and they're very funny. But I was ask myself when I see those, I'm like, just unfollow those people. Like, what are you doing? Like, can you believe this person said that? It's like, just block them. Like, what are you doing? Like, harness your social media as a learning platform. LinkedIn especially. I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn because you can easily segment people by you can find people in certain industries who work at certain companies who do the things that you want to do. It's a great platform that has and then again, if you're on it and it's just full of like garbage, just unfollow those people. It's okay. You don't need to follow your friends on LinkedIn. You don't need to know their professional stuff. It's all right. But you can harness that for good. Thanks for clarification. Oh yeah, you're very welcome. Question about the elephant room. How can we incorporate AI in our fields like simulation effects in 3D? Okay. AI. I did a whole like thing on this on Animation Mentor about like how AI is not come. I don't think it's going to eat either a lunch or anything. So AI is used in entertainment right now. It's not very much. It's some kind of like side use cases. It hasn't really impacted jobs from what I've seen or anything like that. The biggest thing that how do I say this? So one area that's interesting for 3D artists is that AI right now, from an image making standpoint, you can't control it really. Sure, you can text prompt whatever you want, but like that that AI as one step final product output is a gimmick. Even at Adobe, we have our own AI thing. We're making AI empowered tools for creatives. Like there's a website where you can type in a prompt and get an image, but nobody's going to use that. Very few people actually use it for that output. It's very much like I need AI to generate a better grunge map for me inside of Substance Painter. I need AI to develop a brush that I can use in ZBrush or whatever. But the other part of it is that as visual people, we suck at typing in things that we want. I do it by asking my 6-year-old son, like, hey, describe this image. And then I type in the words that he says because my brain doesn't work that way. But what we can do is lay things out visually and use AI to boost it. So 3D is perfect for that. Like composing a scene, setting the camera, positioning the camera. Like I have some tutorial videos on how to do this kind of stuff. But honestly, at the end of the day, it's going to help you do some things faster. It's going to aid you in the way. I can't predict the future, but like that's the way it's going to go in the near term. And I'm back. Someone's AI bot didn't like that I was saying that AI is not going to take anything over. I'm sorry, AI. You're smart. You're good at what you do. No, but like, I think that we've had a few years of this. I think that AI hasn't had a major impact on anything yet. I think it's going to be trickle into some workflows here and there. I think the biggest thing that AI will do, and I've talked about this, is it's going to just change the way that we use our software. Like, isn't it crazy that we use 3D applications on a keyboard that was designed for a typewriter, that was literally designed to slow down your typing to go slower so that the keys didn't stick? And it's 2025 and we're still using Control Alt S to like save something. Like, it's crazy. So AI will help us. Like, we can talk to software. It'll bring up the tool that we want. It'll help you like, hey, how do I use this tool? It'll give you a quick prompt, like showing you how to do things. There'll be like assistance for you inside of software. But in terms of like producing final imagery, like we can produce imagery pretty fast. When you work on a film production or something, like the ability to produce imagery quickly is not the thing that slows us down. It's like getting stuff in front of the director, getting approvals, getting directors to understand what the way that they want, especially going into like the stylized universe that we're getting into. Where more and more 3D stuff is stylized. Like you can't just text prompt that stuff in. You have to create unique looks for things. And AI is really good at finding the average of existing stuff. But what we try and do is break new ground in things. I'll go back to my photography thing too. And again, part of it's because I'm old. But I saw digital photography come up, and I saw print photographers freaking out because they were like, oh my gosh, if people can do this faster, why well, I'll be out of a job. But what happens is that there is a bell curve of content that's created in any field, in photography and whatever, writing, same deal. And what AI does and what these like more simple tools do is allow the middle to bulge higher. We have more photographs now than we've ever had before. Instagram is chock full of them. But it's not like we still need professional photographers who are at the high end in that top 5% of creatives in that field to make the unique stuff, the stuff that stands out. Because AI and digital art produce noise. It's just nonsense. It's just like filled with like just lots and lots and lots of images. So how do you distinguish from that? You distinguish from that from being the best in your craft. And so with the same thing with AI, it's like, I mean, you see it now, like log into like, I unfortunately logged into Facebook recently, and there's just like AI garbage just like everywhere. I was like, oh my God. So, but the thing is that you can distinguish from that by making some unique images. I'm actually a little surprised for all these people who like hate on AI that there's not more anti-AI art, like art around that, like making fun of it, or like it's just a lot of people tweeting about it. So I don't know. I would be surprised by it. Anyway, that was kind of a long ramble one, and I know we only have a few minutes left. I can go over a little bit. Oh man, somebody really spammed that. I'll get down to that in a sec. All right. I'll be quicker with these answers, I promised. What about engineering, transportation that use CAD? I've been working with small companies that the level of detail is very low because they don't have Unreal level realistic mega scans. Do you have experience and knowledge of that? Yeah. So like I was working with a company and know a guy who does like works for the highway department and does like visualizations of the way the roads are going to look, and they take geodata. And again, it's like a lot of that is like, they don't have, it depends on what the use case is. Like if they're just trying to get funding from the local government to pay the road, like they maybe don't need mega scans. They maybe don't need to have like that high resolution of imagery to sell with their ideas. And I work with ZBrush, yeah. But at the same time, it's competitive out there. So if you work for one company that produces better visuals, that better lay it out, you can better sell your product. Again, thinking back to that, like my original thing of putting your paintings and photography inside a visualization of an art gallery, the better that looks, the better off you can sell your idea, and the less leap of faith that you're going to need from your customer. But yeah, you can. But there's definitely a space there to help them. Now, the difficulty with CAD is converting that into polygonal data. There's a big need for that, and they're definitely going to be pushing for that. Where do we find 3D jobs so we can get an idea about the requirements that cater for 40s accordingly? LinkedIn. LinkedIn's probably the best one. I've got a couple other ones too. Let me pull them up and I'll say them out loud. If you're looking into footwear, there's one that's called Laceless that I found. I think that's the name of it. Let me just double check that real quick. Laceless design. I'll just put this in the chat. This one has good footwear design. If you're into that, that's really the only one that I found so far. There's also for like fashion. There is also, let's see. And in fashion, there's also a website called The Inner Line that I'll also throw in here. This is one that just gives you like industry news about fashion. They do a lot of 3D fashion stuff in there. But a lot of it is searching LinkedIn, finding these companies, figuring it out, contacting them. Again, find their recruiters, find their HR group. Like you can reach out to them and say this, like, hey, I'm an artist that's been working in games or entertainment for this amount of time, and I'd really love to work on your company. Like what skills do I need? That kind of thing. I mean, that's what these guys' jobs were. Can you please tell me about refreshing texture artist scope? I'm only texturing in the scope of the industry. And I just want to make sure that's the same question over and over. Can you please tell me about refreshing? Yeah, okay. Freshers, texture artist scope. So actually, Nikita, can you help me like clarify what that question is? Can you please tell me about freshers? I don't know freshers, texture artist scope. I know only texturing. Do you see that one? Sorry, I'm not quite sure what the question.
Yeah.
Even though I've said a lot of times. It's basically yeah. So for texture artists, like I said, there's companies want to be able to produce realistic representations in their products. Again, in most cases for that kind of thing. So from a texture artist standpoint, like understand, because for game and visual effects, this is a bummer to me. It's like you want to make things look as real as possible. by adding grunge and dust and dirt and scrapes and dings and that kind of thing. Product visualization companies don't want that. They want it to look real, but they also want it to look perfect. So that's a skill set in there, is finding that balance. Isn't previs and entertainment with tools such as Unreal something that is coming strongly? Yeah, for sure. I mean, being able to connect the pipeline tighter is definitely something that these companies are looking into. The idea of like one tool just to do layout and previs and then passing it off to somebody else and da. Like Flow, Flow just did it. Beautiful movie. You should go check it out. Where because everyone's like, yeah, they did it in Blender. It's like, you could do this in anything, but basically they streamlined the process of blocking stuff out and then straight up using those assets in the final production. They also did some storyboarding with 3D too. But that early production pipeline, entertainment companies are definitely looking to tighten that up a little bit. Yeah. But again, like the AI is catching up. Yeah, it's all marketing. It's all these guys who are trying to say, oh, it's coming. It's like, yeah, they can produce stuff. It's also like the self-driving car thing. I got real big into the idea of a self-driving car like 10 years ago because, it solves so many problems. Like no traffic, no drunk driving, no less car accidents, all these things. And I was super pumped about it and all in on it. And then what ended up happening, like, and then you look at where we are today, and where we are today is self-driving cars can kind of work on a couple of them, but like mostly it's just like parallel parking yourself. Like, in San Francisco, we have Waymo, which is an autonomous, driving Uber kind of a thing. But the thing is, it's like, I live in Berkeley, which is 8 miles from downtown San Francisco, and it's like it doesn't work. So there's that. By the way, I can go over for like another 15 minutes if you all want to stick around and keep answering questions. If that's okay, Nikia. I don't know if you have okay, you're good. All right, okay. Looks like they can generate a decent model with pictures, but you have to edit the texture itself to make it look pretty good. Yeah, so that's one thing about the text to 3D model thing, is that it's the same thing with like photogrammetry. Like you don't get a fully refined model. It's not optimized. It's not set up very well, but you can use it, like I said, in some of these workflows to position it to drive an AI, like to set up the composition and deliver an AI image that way. But the thing is, and this is so important, is that companies will never use AI to produce their product. It's too specific. It's too special to them. It's too, imagine anyone who's worked on a film production, or anyone that's worked on these kind of things. It's like, oh, you worked on Frozen 1 and Frozen 2. Can't they just use all that imagery to produce Frozen 3? And it's like, man, you if you've ever been in reviews for these films and know the detail that goes into every shot, every look, every refinement, the notes that you get that you have to hit, AI can't hit that stuff. It can come close, and maybe I can't even come that close. It can do like basic storyboard stuff, but the actual production of the final images comes down to an artist being able to translate what an art director wants and deliver that image on screen. I feel like I lost the question in that, but yeah. So it's much more about what your craft can bring to the table. Because for me right now, the valuable use case for AI, the best it can do is you produce your hero asset, your hero character, your product, your shoe, whatever. You can use AI to build out the world around it quickly. And that's it. So the things that don't actually matter, not that they don't matter, but they're just like the things that you wouldn't be focusing on anyway. It's the same as bringing in Megascan's assets to fill out the space. It's just like generic rocks and trees and stuff like that. And there's no difference between pulling in an asset from somebody else and generating it through the AI stuff. Do you know any job boards for 3D fashion like Clo and Marvelous? I don't. Not off the top of my head. So I will, not to self-promote, but for my newsletter every Wednesday, I do searching, And so I find jobs mostly through my connections and through people on LinkedIn. And every Wednesday I post job openings outside of entertainment, so you can get a good understanding of that. So the 3D artist newsletter, I will self promote that. There we go. Oh, it's on Substack. Anyway, throwing it in. All right, it's in the chat window. 3D. Yeah, there we go. I feel like procedural would be more widespread than actually using AI because procedural art is directable. AI is not. Exactly. Precisely. Automation is more important than AI at this point. Doing things faster, doing things headlessly, and then what you can get is an output. Like, imagine you're this is a big one. If you're a company that makes, I don't know, cologne, and you've got 20 different types of cologne, and you have one website, like just go to websites and look at products. They have the exact same camera angles, the exact same thing, because they want to create consistency across the brand. It's not creatively, it's not that high of a bar to reach. But if you can automate that, if you're like, all you need to do is build a 3D asset of that cologne bottle and then plug it into this workflow and automate it, and you produce like all the renders that you need for the website. Also, and it's because again, it won't always directly go like straight to the website. It'll go through an approval process, and because these automated things, like Houdini procedurals, however you do it, it'll best case scenario, it's going to work 9 times out of 10. But you're going to take that one offset. It's like actually the lighting doesn't quite work right on this one, so let's tweak that, or the reflection because this bottle has this weird angle. Like it's pretty distracting, so we'll change that up. Do you have any specific resources to find contract jobs for product viz for students out of college? I'm graduating this May. Congratulations on graduating, and want to be honing my skills and some stability. Okay, so interesting thing. I wrote about this recently. So interesting thing about the freelance market. It's changing a little bit, or the people that are being successful are approaching it a different way than they did previously. So previously, the way that I always thought about freelancing when I lived in New York was the freelancers there were the studios, the mill, frame store, all the different visual effects houses in New York, and you would just kind of go from one to the next to the next to the next. You'd work these short-term contracts between each one, and you'd leverage your contacts and you'd leverage your skills to land the next gig, and everyone just kind of floated around together. And if you were good, it was a stable way to do the thing, and that still exists to a point. There's less of that now, and more of more of you productizing your offering and approaching it a slightly different way. So if it was me and I wanted to go the freelance route, the way that I would do it is I would become really, really good at a thing, like find my niche. Like there's a guy named Connor Hinkle who only does 3D. He does motion graphics for sports venues. So you go to a soccer game, score a goal pops up on every screen, flashing, yay, 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 yay. He does all of that. That's all he does. He has a company called Coliseum. That's what they do. Sometimes it's 2D, sometimes it's 3D stuff. But they work with a specific team in a stadium based on the screens and what they have to create a brand identity that does this thing. If you go to his website, the last time I was there, if you click on inquiries, I think like one of the first, it's like, there's a couple things about it. It's like, he gives you this minimum price. And his like second question is like, what sports league are you a part of? Are you part of NCAA, Premier Soccer, Major League Baseball? And then there's no other category because that's the only people that he wants to work with. And in my community, I interviewed him, and he's a great guy. And there are other people like that, like I think it's Patrick Forty on Instagram, the guy who does only like food. He does really, really good food 3D stuff. There's another guy at our station I'm obsessed with. There's like, he only does like car tires. He makes the most perfect car tires in the world. By offering your services that way, you're able to do a couple things. And one, you develop a niche that is more like people can digest it more easily on like a social media platform. By the way, I'm awful at doing this. I don't actually do this myself, so don't follow me to do this. But basically, it's like you you develop this niche because what that allows for is that these big companies, when they need a thing done, they look for quality. They want the best at it. Cost matters less to them than reliable output, right? Like if you are fill in the major blank of any Fortune 500 company who makes billions of dollars every quarter, like, are you really going to balk at paying an artist, $15,000-$20,000 to produce something for you if you know it's going to be impactful? Again, impactful. It's going to separate out from the crowd. It's going to look different. It's going to be special in that way. Connor is great about that, and he's like I said, we've got the recording in my community about how he approaches that, how he price tiers things. Like I think his minimum is like right around $10,000 that he won't take any project for less than that. And so companies that get into it know that, and he and I just really love the way that he does. So I'll throw his LinkedIn thing in here because he just does a great job of this, of giving behind the scenes looks at what he's working on, what he's building, and he just the breakdowns are just so cool. And again, it's not like it's the broadest topic either. It's pretty specific, but like once you kind of get into it, it's like a totally sustainable thing. He's doing a great job. Does doing 3D content creation for social media would be something relevant if I want to be into entertainment or production field later? Yes, but you have to produce on social media with a goal. Like it's so for working in the field, it's building an audience for something, right? Like social media is building your reach of what you're producing and building people who are interested in what you're doing. But yeah, it's like you're doing that so that you can either like make your offering more available to them or make them more knowledgeable. Having a good, and when I'm saying this, like I'm not saying everyone has to be a TikTok person or everybody has to be on LinkedIn or everyone has to be on Blue Sky or whatever but it's like have a platform where you can reach out to people, where you have a community that you connect with, community that you can build with. And because it's so important, like the time to build a community is before you lose your job or before anything like that, because you want to build this out so that if you do need to connect with people, if you need something down the road, it's a great way to do that. It's also just like really refreshing to connect with other creatives. Like I work from home. I've got 2 little kids, so I don't go out at night. I don't really connect with my artists that much outside of interactions like this or through LinkedIn. Like I said, I don't really go on Facebook. I have a large number of followers on Instagram, but like it doesn't really. My engagement is weird, and it's just I don't really like Instagram that much, so I don't really use it. So I'm pretty much just stick to LinkedIn and Blue Sky now. Twitter I'm off of because of reasons, and yeah, so it's basically just like you don't have to like to spray your stuff on every. I haven't logged on at TikTok in a long time. Like you don't have to spray everywhere to be like the social media darling, but you should find a way to connect with people through online communities. Another one too is like connecting with people in online communities helps me like connect with them in person. Like I find out about events and I go to the events and I meet the cool people and I make friends. And that's always a big one too. Okay, I've got about 5 more minutes and then I do have to hop. Otherwise I'll just lose my voice. I'm interested in bringing up examples like Flow First, etc., of example of digital photography, even though 3D is soaring right now, especially in animation, but also noticing 3D films and games still using 2D effects and elements. Like I heard the TV series Arcane use hand-painted effects and backgrounds versus a rendered one. It's comforting helpful since, yeah, some 2D artists focus on worry about that. Yeah, and there's also like this weird trend of like films like pounding their chest and saying, we did not use anything, everything was practical. It's like, no, it wasn't. It's like fine, but I mean, I've even seen studios that like used VFX in the behind the scenes showing that they didn't use VFX. Like it was so weird. And like it's funny. So don't allow that stuff to get inside of you. It's just like, I mean, for 3D stuff, it's tricky because everything that we do well is seamless. So you would be hard pressed to know that everything on like IKEA's website is 3D, or everything on there's other websites that they don't want people to know that this stuff is 3D, but it is, because it looks very good. But yeah, I totally agree with you that it is kind of. Oh, you're very welcome, Sabrina. What kind of companies will want a procedural modeler? Look for any, like I would say footwear's pretty big, and like would be into that, because think about like the soles of the shoe, the patterns. Look for anything with patterns. Architecture maybe as well. I would say that those two, but again, they're not going to know to ask about procedural modeling. They're going to want faster modeling, and you can show them how you can do that with procedural modeling. All right, I'll take this as the last question. Hello, Michael. It's beginner based in England, UK. Do you know any 3D professionals community in person, online? Really interested in doing 3D modeling, texturing. So I know. So sorry, this is for everyone. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I have some people that you can connect with. There's Emily Bissett, who I work with, who's a 3D evangelist for Adobe, is awesome. She's based in London. There's other people that you can follow. Maxon has a great, I don't know if she's an evangelist or product specialist. I don't know what her job title is, but her name's Ellie. She's a professional soccer player / Maxon Cinema 3D expert, Cinema 4D expert, and makes cool stuff. But yeah, there's a big VFX community in London, and pretty much anywhere that. Well, yeah, there's my LinkedIn. Thank you, Nikita. Reach out to me there. I check that as much as I can. Yeah, and like a lot of it too is, so people will often ask me about like LinkedIn or social media, or like what, like I can't produce content that quickly. What should I put out there? Should it just be personal stuff? And it's like, find stuff that helps people. Like one of my big things with this, and also it's funny the way that the algorithms work. So I search a lot for jobs, and I'll like reshare people who post jobs and like all that stuff. And what that means is that my feed is filled with job offerings. So it looks more fruitful for me. So if you want to see more job offerings on LinkedIn, share as many job offerings as you can, because then the algorithm's like, this person's real big into job offerings and whatever. Yeah, and you can put it out there. And yeah, I'll spray. I try and I'll finish with this. The reason why I do any of this, the reason why I have a community, I spend my nights writing a newsletter, is because 3D had a monumental impact on me and my life and what I was able to do. It helped me meet incredible people. It helped me give purpose for my professional life in a way that I never expected or anticipated. And it's very rewarding for me to try and give back to that. Like, I feel very fortunate. I feel very grateful. I feel very lucky to have gotten some breaks along the way. And I want to pay that forward as much as possible. So if you need anything, just let me know. And you're in a great place. The Rookies is an incredible platform. Nikita's awesome. Everyone who runs the Rookies, I've known them for years. They're, again, in the same position. People who don't need to be doing this, but do this because they care and they want to help people, and all that kind of stuff. So I'll leave it there. Thank you all so much for joining in. I kept my voice through the whole thing, and I'm feeling pretty good about that. Nikita, is there anything else before you want to wrap up? Anything you want to promo for the next one?